Okay, everyone, it's 10 o'clock. Thank you so much again for making it to the Digital Accessibility Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It is a pleasure to have you and to help you understand more about accessibility. So let me just get started with my presentation. For those ones who don't know me, my name is Juan Olarte. I'm the founder and CEO of Digitally Accessible. I've been working in the accessibility field for the last 20 years. I've been fortunate enough to have worked in multiple organizations, from banks to educational institutions and IT companies. I was helping organizations understand what accessibility means and how they can implement accessibility within different projects. Now, one thing is I'm visually impaired myself, so I know how inaccessible content can exclude people with disabilities from fully accessing a website or information within a website. As I go through my presentation, if you have any questions, please do ask them in the Q&A section, and we're going to have the moderator. She's going to be able to convey those questions to me as well. And this presentation is going to be available within our website for you to watch the video again or download the presentation. So the goal of this presentation is to provide a beginner's guide on how to include accessibility in your organization's projects. So what does digital accessibility do? Digital accessibility provides people with disabilities with equal access to information by allowing them to perceive, understand, navigate, interact, and contribute to the digital world. When websites, web applications, mobile apps, videos, PDFs, and or other documents are designed, developed, maintained properly, all users can access information without any obstacle. And this is really, really important. I can tell you how many times I work with projects that they think accessibility is in there or is kind of like an afterthought, and it really, really hinders the ability of different users from being able to access content. Digital accessibility covers all disabilities that prevent equal access to information provided in a digital format. It involves understanding a wide range of disabilities, and those include visual. So you're going to have people who are blind, low vision, colorblind, tunnel vision, or even eye fatigue. Auditory, deafness, hard of hearing, motor physical, inability to use a mouse, slow reaction time, limited time of motor control. Also cognitive, which are learning disabilities, distractibility, inability to remember, focus on a large amount of information. And one of the other ones that are going to be affected is going to be seizures. So how does accessibility help people with disabilities? Digital accessibilities have forever changed the way we interact with the digital world, allowing us to have immediate access to information, communicate, shop, and interact with others online at any time. One of the most important changes technologies have done is in the lives of people with disabilities, as we can now interact with others online. So we have never done it before. An example of this would be people who are blind. Before, if they wanted to read a newspaper, they only would be able to do it in a read format. Nowadays, they can actually go directly to the website, and using a screen reader, they're going to get access to it. As mentioned, I'm visually impaired, so I remember how 20 years ago or even 30 years ago, whenever I wanted to try to read any information, it was always either have to be on large print or somebody will have to write it for me in really, really big letters. But right now, really using assistive technology like Zoom text or even screen readers, I'm able to understand or access information right away. Websites, videos, or digital documents are being used more and more in all aspects of our daily lives. In some cases, websites are completely replacing traditional resources and materials provided by government agencies, educational institutions, media, entertainment, or the healthcare industry. And right now you can see how with COVID-19 for the last year, we have really been moving towards a digital world. So it's really important for us to ensure that different web properties are accessible, so we do not exclude people with disabilities. So how does digital accessibility help people without disabilities? Digital accessibilities also benefit other users, especially those ones who are experiencing some type of disability due to aging, or users who use different devices such as tablets, smartphones, users with a slow internet connection, users with a temporal disability. For instance, if you break your arm and you're no longer going to be able to use a mouse, you're going to rely maybe on a speech recognition type of program, as well as users whose first language is not English, or users who are relatively new to using new technologies. A good example of this is using Microsoft Word. You're going to be able to create different headings or the hierarchical order of headings within a document. Now, this is going to help users, screen reader users, as they're going to be able to navigate the document using the heading order, understanding which one is heading 1, heading 2, or heading 3. People without disabilities can also benefit by being able to understand what the document 3 in terms of content is going to be. So on the screen right now, I have an image showing a Word document where on the left-hand side, you're going to be able to see the navigation for the specific document or the content within the document. This is going to be extremely useful, especially on those documents that are 90 or 100 pages, or even anything above 20 pages is going to be super important. Another way where people benefit, people without disabilities benefit, is when using captioning. I have seen many times people in a bar, well, back when we used to go, there would be a TV, or if you were in a really loud place, you're going to be watching TV. Now, by using the captioning, you no longer have to try to max the volume up, but rather just read the content. Consideration to have in mind is, unfortunately, while technology has provided us with the potential to improve equal access to information to users with different type of abilities, in today's digital age, many resources like web pages, videos, PDFs, office documents are not created with accessibility in mind. This is a huge challenge. I can see how like right now when creating PDFs or websites, accessibility is always an afterthought rather than really trying to include it early on within the development life cycle. It's really going to take people with different abilities out of the equation, but also as legislation groups in multiple countries or provinces, like for instance here in Canada with the AODA, those companies are going to have to comply, and then the process of trying to make something accessible is going to be way more expensive when you consider accessibility as an afterthought. So what do we need to start including accessibility into our projects? In terms of a small specific guide, I put together a few things. First of all, we're going to have to look into establish an accessibility policy to comply with. Now, this is going to be very regional, depending on where within the world you're located. You're going to be looking at what is exactly you have to comply with. In Ontario, we have the AODA, or in the United States, they have the ADA. So I think the first step is always really understand what you need to comply with, and that way you're going to be able to understand what are the different standards that you're going to have to meet. Which brings us to the different standards. So right now, depending on where within the country or the legislation you're going to have to go with, you're going to be looking for the WCAG success criteria 2.0, 2.1. In the United States, you always have the section 508, or in Europe, you have the EN 301, 549. So it's always good to know in advance what you're going to be looking after, what are the standards that every single application is going to be modeling after. The next thing is you really want to align with all the different stakeholders, really to level the playing field in terms of what accessibility means and to set up specific expectations. A lot of the stakeholders are project sponsors, project managers, project owners, or business analysts, UX designers, developers, QA testers, accessibility specialists, and even the project audience. After you have aligned the legislation you have to comply with, the accessibility standards and the different stakeholders, is going to be good for you to put together a toolkit. Toolkit is going to be a document that is going to outline different technologies, assistive technologies, or even the testing methodology you're going to have. Usually you would like to add browsers, assistive technologies, automated tools, assistive accessibility plugins, assistive tools in operating systems if you're going to be using specific testing on that, accessibility testing plan, the accessibility assessment template, and the accessibility report template. And I will be providing a few examples on each one of those in a bit. When it comes to selecting assistive technologies, it's really going to depend how your product is going to be looked at, right? A good way to introduce different assistive technologies is not only to look at screen readers, but try to understand multiple type of disabilities. So in here we have JAWS, which is a screen reader for the Windows operating system. We have NVDA, it's a screen reader for the Windows operating system. We have VoiceOver, screen reader for the Mac or iOS system. And then we have Dragon Natural Speaking, speech recognition, or some text, screen magnification. So again, it's really important for you to take under consideration not only one type of disability, but multiple type of disabilities. So what does the toolkit look like? So an example on the screen, I will look at the first thing is really listing out some of the assistive technologies we're going to be using throughout the project. On the screen, I have JAWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, Dragon Natural Speaking, as well as some text. And I have identified some of the browsers we're going to be using, Firefox, Safari, and Chrome. We're also identifying the different assistive technologies that we're going to be using in mobile devices. So we have iOS and we have Android, we have VoiceOver or TalkBack, which are screen readers, as well as other variety of tools that are going to help people with other disabilities. An important thing to add is going to be an assistive technology testing matrix. Really, you want to understand what is going to be tested in what technology using a specific browser. So in the table, you're going to see the platform operating system, whether it's going to be Windows, Mac, or the specific phone platform. Then you want to see the different browsers we're going to be using. Again, in our example, we have Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. And we also want to allocate the specific time allocation we're going to be testing on each one of those. We would like to have also our accessibility testing plan. The testing plan should include the testing methodology as well as the scope of what will be tested. Really, what you want to do with the scope is understanding how many screen or web pages are going to be part of your test, as well as the different common components. Those common components are going to be elements that repeat from page to page, whether it's going to be a header, navigation, footer, buttons, or expand collapse type of accordions. The testing methodology, again, this one is going to include the standards we're going to be testing against, whether it's going to be the WCAG 2.0 or 2.1, and also the different assistive technologies we're using. In order for a website, web application, mobile app to be accessible, it needs to comply with the WCAG success criteria, as well as it needs to be operable with the different assistive technologies in the operating systems that we're going to be working on. So the accessibility plan approaches to testing. There are three main approaches that you should be considering when doing testing. First one is going to be the automated assessment. Second one is going to be the manual assessment. And the third one is going to be the assistive technology user assessment. The first one is going to be our automated assessment. This one is using software that is going to be using a specific set of rules and it's going to scan the page to really try to understand what are those failures in terms of the code. As Cam outlined early on in his presentation, the automated test is going to be very good at identifying whether if you have any images missing alternative text or forms missing the proper label attributes, tables not being coded properly. However, automated tests only give you anywhere between 25 to 35% of all accessibility issues. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that it is going to be good to use an automated tool, especially if you have a really large site, anywhere above 100 to 200 or even 2,000 pages, is going to be able to give you that element of understanding where within the accessibility compliance you are, but you have to be very careful in terms of understanding that it's only going to be 20 to 35%, you still have to do your manual functional to really try to capture all of those different accessibility issues. One thing that I want to talk a little bit in terms of the automated testing is that many times they're going to be giving you false positive issues. So I see it with a lot of clients where we have to actually document what the false positives are, so they can feel at ease, like knowing that, yes, well, the specific tool identifies some issues. It's not really an issue. We have our manual functional assessment. This one is going to be using plugins, very similar to, and those plugins are going to be very similar to the automated tools, for instance, using the axe cord or the wave tool. They're going to be checking for the specific compliance on a page, but they do it on a page by page basis. Now, to that, it's going to be good if you add color contrast testing, manual one, keyboard testing, as well as checking the code to see if there are any kind of accessibility issues in there. And then we do the assistive technology testing. Now, I like to leave the assistive technology testing at the very end, because if you are able to identify issues in the second one, in the first two testings, chances are the assistive technology is going to have those issues. So really, you're going to be saving some time. Just to give you an example, if there's an image that doesn't have an alternative text, right? The assistive technology plugins are going to be able to identify those images right away, rather than having to go one by one with assistive technology. So for sure, you're going to be saving time in there. In terms of the accessibility report template, some of the things that we're going to be looking for that template to have is a list of accessibility issues found, a description of the issue with the disability, with the specific impact and the disability affected. Issue should be mapped to a specific WCAG success criteria. And this is super important, especially when you're going to try to talk to development as to why the developers or the product sponsors as to why a specific issue needs to be completed or addressed. If possible, each issue should also include code examples or remediation. Now, this is going to be very dependent on whoever is doing the accessibility assessment. If that person has experience in terms of providing code examples or more information, that is always going to be helping the developer, going to honestly going to be doing 50% of the work, and they're not going to have to guess as to what type of implementation they're going to be using. We're going to be looking into the accessibility report template as well, and then we're going to be looking into defining the checkpoints. Whenever you're working with the WCAG success criteria, you're going to, it's always open to interpretation. So for instance, you have the 1.1.1 success criteria, which is related to images. Unfortunately, under the images, there's going to be multiple type of categories, whether it's going to be a decorative image, ASCII character, active image, and all of them are going to be treated a little bit different, right? So it's going to be good if you can actually take the time and create some checkpoints to really help you understand what are the different subcategories and how you're going to be addressing them. We have actually created multiple checkpoints to help us and help our clients really understand how we can take ambiguity away from the specific WCAG success criteria. This one really talks about the 3.3.2 and provides information in terms of the category, issue type, which is going to be a subcategory, severity, and complexity. Now, in terms of the issue example, it's going to be really good if you provide information exactly in terms of what the issue is, provide an image, and if you are able to access the code or you understand the code, really point it out to the developers. That's going to make their job a lot easier. In terms of ticket issue example, so obviously we're going to have the expected outcome, actual outcome, and you will also want to add the impact. This is going to be really powerful to create some empathy and really help understand why is that we have to fix a specific issue. Once that the project has finished, it's going to be always good to document the lessons learned. Really get together with the different stakeholders, understand what went well, what didn't, or what can you change for the next project, especially if you have or if you work in a large organization where you're going to be going from project to project. It's really good to take those lessons learned. We are going to go into the archiving. So really take a lot out of that documentation. Ideally, you would like to have it under a centralized place where you can go back later on if you need to, especially if you're going to be audited or if there was some kind of work in terms of accessibility let's face it, like people don't remember what is happening 6 months from now. I usually forget what happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But if you're able to document everything under one place, whoever comes or is going to work on the project 6 months from now is going to really understand what was done. And with that, I think I finished my presentation, so I can actually open it to some questions. Okay, so let me repeat the question. So Kim, thank you so much for your question. Kim is asking, what do you find to be the best tools for assistive technology testing? JAS. I mean, I think JAS is good. The only problem with JAS is obviously you have to pay for it. We actually use NVDA a lot, and I think the NVDA team has done an amazing job to making sure the assistive technology works really well. So I think NVDA will be good if you're going to be testing on a mobile device. Obviously, iOS or Android TalkBack is going to be really good. Okay, thanks, Kim, for your question. The other question is for accessibility testing. Should we upgrade to a screen reader or Zoom as a new version is released? I will say so. I mean, so there's two different things to consider. You should always try to test with the latest type of assistive technologies. However, there's a small caveat with that. A lot of times people with disabilities, they are not going to be moving to the latest assistive technologies. So I really always try to find a balance, really for sure have the latest version, but also have like 1 or 2 versions before that, just so you know that everything is going to be well supported. We're going to be looking into also interoperability between the browser and assistive technology. Oh, I think we have another question. Okay, so we have a question on can you talk about how you should use assistive tools and with the standards testing a bit more? For sure. I personally, what I like to do first is get for instance, the WCAG success criteria 2.1. Really try to create a checklist in terms of what you're going to be testing, how you're going to be testing it, and that way, actually, let me see if I can have an example. So one of the things we do is really try to understand what the different checkpoints that we need to go for. So before you do any kind of testing with assistive technology, I will suggest for you to have a list of all the different checkpoints for the WCAG 2.0, 2.1 for both level A and AA, and then really understand whether they pass, fail, pass, fail, pass, fail. This one is going to really give you the first indication in terms of like if there's an actual issue. Now, let's say you have an issue with a link or with a specific image, and then you're not really sure. That's when you can actually try to go and validate with assistive technology. Yes, so I hope that answered your question. And again, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. We are going to have the video on the website, and if you want to reach out to me, my profile is on the website as well as my LinkedIn. Thank you so much.